Hi, I'm David Liew, rheumatologist from Melbourne, Australia, and I'm delighted to join you here for our Room Now panel about international attendees at this year's ACR Convergence. It's been a bit of an adventure for, I think, everyone trying to adapt to the current situation, and the ACR annual meeting is no different to anything else. That there are challenges to overcome to try and make something which is a fundamentally human experience into a virtual experience. I'm really glad to be joined by two of my Room Now faculty here, Sheila Reyes from the Philippines, from Manila in the Philippines, and Richard Conway from Dublin in Ireland, and also with Dr. Swamy Venuturupalli, who is the Chair of Education at the ACR. Welcome to you all.
Thank you.
Hello, welcome.
Oh, thanks, David.
Great. So I might start with Richard and Sheila and ask you, what do you think that you're hoping from the virtual ACR experience? This is, I think, all a bit new for all of us, and we probably all bring different expectations. Richard, what have you thought about in the lead up to this meeting? What have you been thinking about in terms of this meeting?
So obviously we're all very disappointed that we couldn't go to a face-to-face meeting in Washington. It's always a great experience going to America for these meetings. But sometimes necessity is the mother of invention, and hopefully something good and exciting will come out of this. So I think particularly for international attendees, potential benefits to more flexibility and recordings and being able to see sessions we might otherwise have missed and then see them back later on.
Yeah. Sheila, I mean, I think you're on the other side of the world from Washington, DC. It would have been a long journey and a challenge in itself to come, but what do you think the virtual experiences means for you in this current era?
Yeah, well, I'm really actually very excited, especially now that, it's my first time as well with Room Now. I'm excited to looking forward to, getting a lot of new information about the clinical trials, as well as I've been looking into the poster sessions, the abstracts, the topics, and in this part of the world where I live, where I come from, and I practice, sometimes most of our medicines or even the biologic agents are not really that available. So I'm looking forward to listening in and knowing new things about what works with my practice in this part of the world, and of course enjoying the virtual experience. I mean, I agree with Richard in that it's really sad that we don't get to travel, even if I come from this part of the world. But it's exciting. It's exciting because we get to do this. We get to collaborate, and we get to meet new friends and colleagues online.
Great, absolutely. I mean, varied backgrounds, us all, and different time zones. It's 6 a.m. in Manila right now, 10 p.m. in Dublin, 9 a.m. here in Melbourne, Australia. Swamy, the ACR has done a lot of thinking, it seems, into how to design this. Can you talk us through what the development process must have been? Very intense.
Sure. So as soon as we knew that there was a potential of a pandemic, sometime in January or February, we started thinking about what it would mean in November. Obviously, we were hoping for the best and hoping that we would continue to be able to meet people in person and continue our programming the way we had done. I don't know if anyone's aware of this, but we actually finalized our entire program sometime in January, and we sent out speaker invites by March, and we finalized everything by April or May. So we had already planned an in-person meeting, and usually we get about 15, 16,000 people. And this year it was going to be in DC a few days after the election, actually, it turns out. And it's always an odd time. I remember last time in 2016 when it was in DC and we were there and there were protests on the street and things like that. So it's certainly an exciting time, and it's a great town, of course. So right after we understood that, okay, we might have a problem having numerous people under one roof, we started planning to have at least part of the meeting virtual. And over the next several months, it became increasingly clear that the pandemic had, really taken over our thinking, our thought process, and prevented us from meeting together in person, we decided to switch to a virtual only meeting, because planning both a virtual and a hybrid meeting, where we had some events that were in smaller groups, meeting in smaller groups, or virtual watch parties and things like that. We thought about those sorts of things. But by around April or May, we had, really figured out that, okay, this is going to be a fully virtual meeting. And this actually happens to be the year that we're calling our name, we changed our name to ACR Convergence. So not only did we have to throw away all the thinking we had done behind what is convergence and what it means. The way we had thought about convergence is that we look at the ACR as one of the premier meetings in rheumatology. And it's really where all people involved in rheumatology converge in one place and exchange ideas, learn from each other, teach each other. And it's been a really vibrant community. So we started imagining how we could make this annual meeting part of that. But the ACR is also thinking along the lines of our content being so good that we wanted really easily accessible. And that was one of the criticisms of our content being excellent, but not having a shelf life beyond the annual meeting. So those were things that we were already thinking about and starting to implement when we got hit with this news. So we reimagined the whole process of what a convergence might look like virtually, and this is what we've come up with. We had to figure out, first of all, what platform exemplifies the thought of behind converging and getting people together. We evaluated over 20 platforms, and some of them were really interesting looking and visually very appealing. They had, for example, a 3-dimensional structure which replicated a convention center that you'd walk into, and you'd click on a booth of a sponsor or something, and then you'd go right into it. But ultimately, we selected a platform named Pathable, which we're actually quite happy with so far. And the big deciding factor was that it allows for a lot of online engagement and discussions in real time. It also leverages platforms that are already out there, like Zoom, for example, so YouTube videos, etc. So it leverages all these platforms, and they weren't trying to reinvent the wheel of having their own hosted video platforms and things like that. So the stability of the platform was good. They had a proven track record of holding meetings of over 10,000 people. And what we thought about was the real meat of our live discussion is the question and answer session. That's when we digest the material and then we start engaging in discussions. The other thing is study groups and smaller groups, research discussions, and the abstracts that generate a lot of discussion. So we wanted to make sure that those elements, the critical elements that make the annual meeting what it is, were preserved. And so we designed around that. We actually had to cut down some of the sessions that we had already planned, which were more suitable for in-person meetings. And what we decided was that we would focus on things that are really critical, cutting-edge material that we want all of our attendees to learn. We expanded the concept of community hubs, which we had piloted in the year prior. So this is a community that forms around either a disease or a specific interest that someone might have, be it a research interest or clinical interest. And we allowed a platform for these meetings to happen in real time. And we actually programmed time for these places to happen and meetings to happen.
I mean, Richard and Sheila, I don't know if you've had the chance to play around with it yet and to try out some of those features that Swamy's talked about. Richard, I mean, you're quite active in the vasculitis community. How have you found that interaction so far? Have you had a chance to have a look?
Yeah, I've had a chance to play around with it a little bit. I'm quite impressed with the format and the way it works, and I think, yeah, to some extent, it's sacrificing all the bells and whistles that aren't really important, and it's very, very slick, the current system. I like how it interacts. It's very easy to integrate with, and there's a lot of opportunities there. And I think potentially it provides even greater, different, but greater opportunities than the face-to-face for networking and meeting up with people and interacting and things like study groups. I think potentially they can work even better in the online setting.
I mean, I guess so I can ask you to elaborate on that a bit. What do you think the advantages of are in having that virtual setting in those kind of interactions? Because it is that slightly different format, perhaps even a bit more democratic, even, dare I say.
Yeah, I think so. I think for certain people may not be particularly comfortable in face-to-face settings and putting themselves forward, especially junior people. Potentially it favors the people who are already involved and know each other, continuing that. And people do try and be inclusive, but it's always hard for inexperienced and junior people and people from other countries to interact with these experts in the field. And I think certainly some people will be more comfortable doing that online. And I think the experts will be very open to that. So I think it's a win-win situation for everyone.
Absolutely. Sheila, how do you think this is going to affect your learning experience? I mean, I think there's so much always at the ACR annual meeting, at ACR Convergence now. Do you think that this makes it a digestible, is this a digestible platform for you to try and find the things that you want to find out?
Yeah, actually, it's I've been clicking around since the other day with the different topics and moving. I've even been messaging my friends, looking up people I know. So yeah, it gives that you get the chance to, there's the live sessions, but then you're able to go back to the things that you've missed, because maybe, like, for example, you have two topics that might be together during that time slot. So you just have to choose one, and then you get to go back to the other one afterwards. And well, of course, there's the issue about the time difference. When it's like being jet lagged virtually. But what's the good thing about it is, with that big difference of the time, it's usually my bedtime here, but it's more quiet. It's off office hours. I don't get to do clinic at that time. So you get, if you're really excited and if you're really interested in certain topics, you get the time. You make time for it. So I mean, yeah, it's more easily digestible. I like that word. It's more easily digestible. I think just probably would be the main problem with this side of the world, with our region, probably the internet connection. Sometimes it goes a bit crazy here, especially with the typhoon season being a bit weird in our place. So yeah, but it's a good learning platform. I like how the ACR was able to set it up, with I bet with all with the organizers were all thinking about learning, collaboration. So it's good.
I mean, that sounds like
Couple of points, great points. I mean, I think when obviously there's no perfect way to do this, and under normal circumstances, you would have your set schedule, everyone's there in that city, we're all in the same time zone. So we did give this a lot of thought, and we wanted to make sure that at least one of the two main sessions corresponded to either the Asia Pacific or the European African time zone. So they would be compatible with those time zones as broadly as we could. Obviously, we couldn't, be perfect and think about everybody possible. So those were things that we did. Number two is that in terms of the connectivity of the internet, the good thing about this platform is that one of the conscious decisions that we made with a lot of the main talks that we have been pre-recorded. So we don't have the connectivity issues. For example, if an international speaker, or even in the US, we know we have internet issues. We don't want to have that experience translate into a live session. So those sessions are pre-recorded. And then the question and answer is what's live. So that's where the interaction occurs. And there you don't really need video. You can, type in your questions, the moderator looks at them, parries them, sets them up. And then we have a voting up system for those questions. So all the questions that are really liked by people who are engaging in a live platform, that's upvoted. And then the moderator picks that up and hopefully asks that to the presenter. So those are things. And lastly, you have access to all of this material for a whole year. And more if we can pull that off. So you can always go back to sessions that you've missed. We're recording pretty much everything.
It really sounds like that synchronous learning has that advantage in that you'll be able to, if you have a lagged internet connection, you'll be able to see things straight away. What's the ACR's position on CME and asynchronous learning? Because I think there's obviously an enormous opportunity to go back and listen to all this incredible material well and truly after the time or at times that suit people. How is that going to work out in terms of CME accreditation?
So I think, CME is a, honor system for the most part. So it's up to you to, say that you've listened to a talk and check it out. I think there's a maximum amount of CME that we're allowed to offer for the programming. It's not every last hour of programming, but if there's a maximum amount, it's a lot of CME though. I think there's a lot of CME in there. So there's plenty. I think there's a couple hundred hours, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know the exact number. You'll have to fact check me on that, but it's quite a bit.
And
yeah.
Well, it sounds like the community's responded. And I can imagine that it sounds like registrations have been going great guns, really.
Yeah, last count, and again, I don't have the official tally, but I think we're over 14,000 attendees for the all access pass scientific session. So the other thing I want to make sure that the international audiences know is that we have a special rate for people from developing countries who, first of all, the rate itself has been slashed in more than half the cost of what it normally is, minus, of course, the hotel and the travel and all of those things that you're saving on. But we also recognize that this is a difficult time. We're in a global pandemic, and economic situations across the world are very challenging. So there is a special rate for people from developing countries. And I think there's an easy application process. So we're hoping to attract a lot of people, offer quality content for a whole year at a pretty reduced price. And we're actually quite fortunate that the industry in the US has also supported our efforts quite a bit. So we were able to offer all of this through a lot of good support and a lot of goodwill that we've generated.
Well, it's a brave new world, and I think we're all excited to see how it plays out. Thank you very much for joining us today, Swamy. It's very kind of you to make the time.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. Appreciate the opportunity, and look forward to seeing you all in person, hopefully, once everything settles down.
Absolutely. And you can hear more coverage of the ACR Convergence from Richard and Sheila, myself, and the rest of the RheumNow faculty. We've got a great lineup this year. Just head along down to rheumnow.com. Thanks for joining us.